All right. Welcome, everyone, to the TBD Pod. Today we have Realty Dynamics and Serenity Capital Management, Ishaan and Shree. Guys, welcome to the show. Ishaan, welcome back.
Appreciate that.
Thanks, Garrett.
Of course. What episode were you on, Ishaan? You were you might have been like number 2 or 3.
It was definitely one of the first ones.
One of the first ones.
Yeah, and that was probably 2 years ago?
It was probably, right? Like a year and a half ago or so.
Yeah.
Started in February, and you came on soon after that. Coming up on 2 years, man.
Right.
Crazy.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute, man. I wanted to talk to you guys. You have this awesome software called Realty Dynamics. We were digging into it a little bit before we went live. It is a tool that investors, developers, and probably brokers would use on finding properties for their customers or developers looking for sites, etc. And it's got all these different things in there about different analytics and information, and you're probably pulling data from what? Property appraiser, list goes on.
Yeah. We have over 100 different data layers. And to your point, developers, brokers, property appraisers, civil engineers, brokers. I mean, it goes
over 100
on.
real estate mapping data layers. So very comprehensive.
Oh, yeah.
And then also Serenity Capital Management. And what is Serenity Capital, Shree?
Serenity Capital Management is basically the development and acquisition arm. So our business is broken up into 3 different verticals. We have Kulkarni Properties, which is sort of the real estate arm up in the Midwest. And then when we moved down here, we created Serenity Capital Management. So that does all the acquisition work here in Florida. And then we have Realty Dynamics, which is the software arm of our business.
And real quick, Shree, up in the Midwest, what type of properties do you own and develop and manage and maintain?
Yeah, so we own a bunch of different properties up in the Midwest. Frankly, that's most of our land holdings.
Yeah.
And we have some really exciting stuff going on. So in Canal, Winchester, Ohio, we have a 35.5 acre parcel that we're trading LOIs with a large grocery store. And I think that's got some room to run. It's going to be a really neat development. We'll have probably 7 to 8 retail pads outside. We just got it entitled for 244 multifamily units. So that'll be a good mixed-use comprehensive development. We've got actually a site tied up catty corner to that. It's a 40-acre parcel that we're trying to entice a large hardware store to be interested in. Got a 70-acre parcel in Pendleton, Indiana that we're trading paper, actually PSAs with a large grocery store on. That'll be multifamily. We have some outlots. We've got some light industrial. We've got a 100+ acre site in Avon, Indiana that's hopefully will be ripe for residential development. We just have a lot of stuff, plus the stuff I own in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Large parcels of property too, like the things you could do. In my head, I'm thinking like Midtown or Water Street, right, locally here. But man, you have 70 acre, 35 acre. It's a lot of room to play with.
It is, and we actually do have a Midtown in Cincinnati, Ohio. It's in the MLK Innovation Corridor, and eventually it'll look like Midtown.
Wow, that's exciting.
It's pretty neat, yeah.
It'd be great to do something like that down here, but I'm sure it's challenging at this point. Land is very expensive. This area is built out. Is it in general easier in the Midwest to find parcels like that rather than Florida? I feel like there's a lot of competition in Florida for properties like that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Competition is high, but for a reason. Returns are high. Yeah, I think it's relatively easier. It's not easy, right? There are still hurdles. Like if you're in Cincinnati or Indianapolis or whatever, there's still municipality, the regulatory hurdles. There's
so those are big markets too. You probably have other large developers targeting the same things you are, et cetera.
Yeah, I think so. But at the end of the day, part of the reason we moved to Florida, and Ishaan can attest to this, is if I would have been doing what I do in Cincinnati or Tampa, let's say I started in I graduated law school in 2006. So in 2006, if I would have invested the same amount of money in Tampa or in Cincinnati, I'd be worth 10 times as much money doing the exact same thing. My life wouldn't have changed, right? The work would have been the same. The output would have been the same. And I would be worth more just because the nature of real estate. Real estate's a function of 2 things: people right? So population growth and income growth. That's it. And so and that's, if I would have done the same thing in New York City, I would have been worth 100 times if I was able to figure that more. Like, there are just places that are growing. And so it's a mistake. It's a mistake that I learned. Not to say that there aren't really, really successful people in the Midwest. There are that make all kinds of gobs and gobs of money. But all things being equal, you should do business in places that are growing.
Right. Yeah. Location matters so much. But there's also the barrier to entry, right? Like, imagine starting out fresh in New York versus down here. There's a massive opportunity. I still think we have decades of growth ahead of us.
I tend to agree with you.
Yeah. And just let's talk quickly about the market too. It's softened up since, for sure, you last came on, Ishaan.
Yeah.
But in the last really 18 months in particular, it's been interesting. You still have this incredible amount of demand, yet other factors have diminished the demand, but it's still high, right? You still have high interest rates. You still have high insurance, a little lower than it was a few months ago. You have less buyers in the market, but there's still a ton of people moving to Florida. So on paper, it might seem like the market's softening and trending downwards, but on my side, on the residential side, you're still seeing record prices in certain areas. It's like this weird two things are happening at once. You guys were, for the past few years, very much focused on land acquisition. How has that shifted since you started Serenity down here in your land acquisition business? Like, in the beginning, it seemed like you guys were rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
Has that softened? Have you seen it soften a little bit?
Go ahead.
So I think that from the perspective of land, sellers' expectations have only gotten higher.
Yeah.
Right? Because their neighbors, like, these are old farmers or folks who have generational land that has been passed down for over 100 years, right? And so their neighbors are selling, their family is selling, and every year the price per acre just gets higher and higher. And as more growth sort of enters into these markets in terms of home builders, retailers, self-storage, healthcare folks, land only continues to get more expensive.
So there's a discrepancy between the sellers and the buyers, essentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, the sellers might be in la la land a little bit, right?
They are, absolutely.
Because for a few years, there was this insane bull run. And now that the market has softened, they may perceive their property being worth more than it really is. And then, like, how do you fight that battle out with them?
Yeah.
Especially with a farmer that's like, dude, I've owned this for generations. I don't have to sell right now.
Of course.
That's probably where the tightness maybe happens.
Yeah, that, and also timing, right? Like, these are agriculturally zoned properties that need to be rezoned, and counties are like inundated with rezoning applications. I mean, there's hundreds of properties being rezoned, and they only have so much staff. And so the timelines now, like a rezoning probably 5 or 10 years ago would have taken 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. That's moved on to 10 months to 12 months now, just for a rezoning.
Well, you were on the show, 18 months ago,
Yeah.
talking about your site plan at that property you have out in Riverview.
Yeah.
And still, I mean, where are you at on that? You haven't broken ground.
Yes. So we have not broken ground yet. We did get it rezoned. Okay. Back then we were sort of new to the market, right? So we were trying to understand what the highest and best use was.
Yeah.
And I think that we finally did. And so it took us some time, but we finally got rezoned in April of this year, actually.
Congratulations.
Yeah, just to add 3 points. You mentioned, because I think it was an interesting comment, that houses are selling for a lot of money on the water. Like, there's this barbell feeling for residential real estate.
Yes.
I totally agree. So my perspective is, especially after the hurricanes, you have the you have this sense that the great real estate's could get even more expensive, just like it did in Fort Myers and
Right.
after Hurricane Ian, because the people that can't afford it are finally getting an opportunity to access great lots on the water. Right, for them, the insurance cost just isn't a factor in where they want to live.
Yeah.
So I think great lots are going to continue to be phenomenal. What is interesting to me is, so my house, my neighbor to the right, we were very fortunate, did not flood. The neighbor to the right, my neighbor to the left, the 2 neighbors behind me, all flooded out. Nobody lives in any of those 4 homes. we have I bet you of my neighborhood, maybe 30% of all the houses flooded. I'm not sure, there's not enough builders in Tampa to buy every lot. So the feedback I'm getting is they're being very picky, right? If you're a builder and you have cash, you're going to go after the lots that are going to be the most valuable to you. They're going to be the best lots. So I think that's exactly what you're saying is there's this barbell. Great properties with great houses are going to be worth more. And properties that perhaps aren't so great or well located, perhaps in the short to medium term are going to be worth less. But again, that's the beauty of Tampa. When you have population growth,
Right.
it just raises all ships. So
Yeah, our allure and the constant demand, right? You have these like layers of demand. We're in Florida, right? You have the sunshine, the weather, the retirees. You always have that base moving here. The business and the tax advantages, there's that layer. And then locally, this place is awesome, right? A lot of people know about it, close to the airport, close to the beach, big metro, football, etc. So you kind of have these drivers that will always support us. But something that's interesting is a lot of those older homes that did flood that were built in the 60s and 70s, you're over on like the west side. Like, I don't want to give out your address, but Beach Park, Sunset Park, right? That area, that West Shore corridor, Barrier Islands, all the older homes that are like 70s built below the floodplain, those just aren't marketable anymore. You know, I don't care how nice the kitchen is. I don't care, oh, beautiful new floors and all that. Like buyers right now, their first question is, did this thing flood? And that's a requirement, always has been, right? But now that that's at the top of a buyer's mind and requirement of disclosure, right, from the seller, now that that's at the top of a buyer's mind, it's not going to matter that 1970s house is really cool and it's got all these new fancy bells and whistles and it's maybe at a price on the water that's affordable versus new construction. Buyers are not going to take that risk. Mortgage lenders are not going to take that risk. Insurance companies aren't going to take that risk unless you have someone with a bunch of cash that's just like, I want to be on DI on the water. I'll take this older home. Even then, that person's taking a huge risk. These storms are going to keep coming. Like there's going to be another event like this in the next, who knows, hopefully it's a while. But that being at the top of a buyer's mind has made those older homes totally unsellable. Like they're just waiting and sitting on the market. If you have an old crappy house from the 70s and grandma lived there for a long time and it got flooded out, sure, like that might go to a builder for, let's say, $750, not on the water. But if you have a house that's like $1.2 million, that's below the floodplain, that has the newer kitchen and all that, but it's not new construction, where's your buyer? That's the thing. A builder's not going to buy it because you're too high. Doesn't make sense for his return. An end user's not going to buy it because it's too high, it's below a floodplain, insurance, etc. So it's like that little middle piece of the market, it's going to be a tricky one.
Well, to add to that, you have the variables of how much debt do you have? Like, what's your mortgage currently when you were flooded out? And once you pay that off, you're taking into consideration what you're getting from your flood insurance that you ended up paying for. And so people are in very weird stages of the life cycle of homeownership, right? Because if you have a new mortgage, and to your point, you thought your house was $3.5 million because you bought it on the water, it was this beautiful 1-story house, whatever, and it ends up being $1 million, and you have a $2.5 million mortgage. Doesn't matter how much flood insurance gives you, you got to pay off $2.5 million.
Yeah.
But you know what's interesting, and then you talked about land. We've seen, and I think there's two factors. Number one, I think the hurricanes kind of highlighted, which you highlighted. The second thing is Trump's election ended up putting really, really good focus. So if you have a state like Florida, right, all of the great things you mentioned about it, in the news today, Marco Rubio may be Secretary of State. And I've heard that potentially our governor is going to run for Senate, right? So then you have a very powerful state with great reasons to move to Florida. Going back to this property on Sims Road, ever since the election, I've been getting a lot of calls. It's not listed, right? It's an off-market property. There just isn't, nobody's out there trying to sell it or whatever the case may be. People are hunting me down because they have a very, very positive view because it's off the water, right? It's in Riverview. It's not in the floodplain, and all these different things. So if you're a developer, you look at that and say, I have really high hopes for the next 4 years, given the market, given the economy, given where taxes are going to be, given how much more money the individual investor is going to have in their pocket. I see that real estate's going to kind of ramp up here. There's an affordability issue which everybody has to figure out, but I have very high hopes for the next 4 years.
I think so too. I think there was a mist of optimism in the market. Then that still exists. I mean, we're like a week away from the election. It's been about a week, and you saw the bond market improved and the stock market went up, and Bitcoin is at an all-time high. That no matter what you think politically, whoever you voted for ideologically, putting all that aside, from a business perspective, there's optimism on the right for a plethora of reasons, including policies and less government red tape, yada, yada, yada. But when that side wins, there's like this spark of all of these players, including probably myself. Like, we've done refinances and been stacking cash and hedging, waiting for opportunity. Now someone like me that's had his cards to his chest, that's been sitting on the sideline, sees that win and is like, ooh, okay, let's see how this plays out. Now I got my deck of cards and I'm like, let's make a move. I think there's a lot of that happening. I think that's why you're getting a lot of calls, because people that have been on the sidelines all summer see that win and they're like, okay, let's make some moves. There's optimism out there, which didn't exist 2 weeks ago.
Totally. I think you're right. And
Yeah.
the equities markets show that, like,
Consumer confidence
totally
is up there again.
Totally.
Finally. Let's switch to Realty Dynamics. So how did all this begin? I mean, you didn't start off as a technology company, right?
No.
You guys started off as a developer and looking for land plays, et cetera.
Yeah, that was our sort of forte, man. We came into town and we're like, you know what? We feel very comfortable locating great land parcels, finding the highest and best use for them as it pertains to that specific parcel, whether it's retail or self-storage or single family. We actually finished 85 single family homes in Lake Nona, Florida. And so that's sort of why we moved here, which is to sort of implement that same business model here. And so initially it was very focused on finding sort of larger tracts of land, 20 acres, 30 acre pieces of land where we can build, 60 to like 120 homes. And then what we realized, and this was like February of last year, we're like, man, we're spending a lot of time trying to site select specific parcels and look for like off-market deals. And Shree and I sat down and we were using a software back then. And it was a good software, but it was an outdated software. And we're like, you know what, we're younger guys. Technology is moving forward. AI is amazing. Why don't we implement all of those specific features into a software? And if we could use it, there's hundreds of people across the whole state.
Yeah, just to add to that, we're developers, and so we approach the software as developers. And I think that's a key difference between ourselves and the world of information and our competitive set out there, because the way that our product is oriented is from the mind of a developer.
Right. Those are always the best systems, the ones that are born of the user, right? When there's a problem in a marketplace or a problem in your own business and you create the solution. Because if you have a problem, everyone has a problem.
No
right?
doubt. Yeah. So, I mean, this is the sort of software here, but once you log in, it's a very seamless, user-friendly, amazing software. It encompasses every single county across the whole state of Florida. So, Garrett, take a guess on how many counties that there are.
67.
Nice. Yeah. Nailed it. So there's 67 counties. There's about 11 million parcels across the whole state of Florida. So
I'm glad you didn't ask me that question, because I didn't know that one.
And so this encompasses every single county, every single parcel. And, the map is a interactive map. All of our sort of features that we have, which is over 100 features, is on the left-hand side here. So some of the things that we're doing, right? You can basically scroll in. I'll use Hillsborough County here. You can zoom into the map, go to your satellite view here, and essentially click on any parcel. So you can click on a parcel. It's going to highlight that parcel and come up with all the information on that parcel, right? Assessed value, acreage, ownership information, address, PIN, and then everything links to the property appraiser site here as well, right? And that's for every single parcel across the whole state of Florida. Now, the tools and features that we have, again, there's over 100 of them, but some of the sort of main highlighted ones are like you can look up floodplain issues, right? So if you have a floodplain map, this helps you sort of locate if you're in flood zone A, AE, or X. So we have a flood map. There is, wetland maps right here. So here's your wetland mapper, which you can sort of track where all of your wetlands are across the whole state of Florida. We're also tracking zoning and future land use data. So here's your zoning data, right? And what's important about this, Garrett, is we get all of our zoning information from the counties, right? And so a lot of other softwares, which I realized, was it sort of gave you this broad scope of zoning. This is agricultural, this is residential, so on and so forth. But I wanted to sort of really understand what the counties are doing with their zoning, what the cities are doing, because they have a completely other code of actual zoning as well. And then our parcel data is updated as well.
So when you're looking, like right now, you're in Hillsborough County, you're in like the Gibsonton, Riverview area, right? If you pan over to the city of Tampa, it'll actually show you those zoning overlays specifically for the city.
That's exactly right.
And the same thing, if you go even further west to Pinellas, now it's using Pinellas counties.
That's exactly right.
See, that's huge. That's huge. Because otherwise you're digging through those different codes. What does this mean? Every county's different. Every city's different. So this is like a comprehensive look. You can just move the map and it automatically updates.
That's exactly right. And that was the pain point for us, right? Is going to, because, okay, I just went from Hillsborough to the city of Tampa. That's two different tabs right there. Now imagine going to Pinellas, right? Pinellas has, I think, 27 cities or something like that. So now you're looking up even more tabs. And so we're like, man, what a pain. Like, what if we created a one-stop shop that dealt with all of this data?
What are some things with all this data? I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I just thought of the question. Is there anything that you found incredibly interesting? Like something where you're like, whoa, like, when you add XYZ data point, look at this anomaly. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of features that Ishaan will show you. The pending permits one is fantastic, and you'll see that adds a lot of value because you get a sense of
like growth, where the growth is going type thing.
Correct. Like there's data, and then there's retrospective data, which is like what's happened in the past, and then there's prospective, and that's the holy grail, right? Is to be able to predict what the next great market is, the next great site, whatever the case may be. And so that's what we're trying to nail here with some of these features. But Ishaan can show you. We also have an analytics tab, which you should show him too on this same.
Well, that's the whole game, right? Real estate is largely speculative. Even all the way down to remodeling and flipping a home up to building a 300-unit multifamily. It's all based on future value.
No doubt.
So predicting that is paramount, right?
Right. So just running you through a quick use case, right? If I'm a developer or if I'm a broker, right, new to town, right, this is how I would use our software. So you can come into our analytics section, right, and then you'll basically be able to see, let's go into population growth, right? Now this is going to give you all of your population growth metrics on a percentage basis, right? Now you have identified a market where you believe that is seeing a lot of population growth. So 15% and 24%. Okay, well, that's great. Well, I want to also focus on specific land sites where income growth is also going up. So you can click on change in total income volume. And what we're doing here, Garrett, simply is we're taking all of the IRS data over a 5-year moving average. We're basically sort of conveying on a map the total income volume changes. So you're able to see on a percentage basis where the income is actually growing.
And where would the population growth data come from? The census?
Right.
Wow. So all of these data points are backed by essentially the main source, right? The government or municipality giving you the public data.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah. So now once you have identified a sort of market, right, where you know that the population is growing here, income is also growing. This seems like over the next 5 to 10 years, it would be a good investment piece, right? And so what you can do is you can actually search for off-market deals. So you can actually come into our software. You can do this by county or by polygon. And let's just say you want to search, broadly speaking, in this area, right? So you're going to draw this polygon here.
Kind of South Hillsboro.
Correct. And you want to find select specific sites here. So you're going to go into our advanced parcel search tool, and you're going to say, all right, find me all of the parcels here, which are over, let's just do like 15 acres. And under 20 acres here. Let's do 25 acres, right? And the beauty of this is you can search by ownership information, by zoning category, by future land use, by flood zone, by sales information. I mean, it's a very dynamic search tool. And so now I can come into here and say, all right, I want to have a property that allows me to build at least 6 units per the acre. So I can go into future land use here, go into the future land use code, and you can just simply type in the code. So you want to find all of the parcels that have a future land use code of SMU-6, which is suburban mixed use 6. And you can press run query. And what this will do is actually find all the parcels in that polygon. You can export this into an Excel spreadsheet with all the information of each parcel, and then simply click show and map, and then check this out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's actually a good opportunity to take a quick pause. So here's how Ishaan and I view this software. As the world progresses, data is going to become even more omnipresent, right? Like it just is going to become more and more and more important. And it's our belief, real estate. Real estate's a very legacy business. It's a very slow moving, slow growth industry. That being said, everybody should be using our software. It's literally the best in class software to help you figure out and do your due diligence and manage your projects that exist in the market today. And people can wait, right? You can wait, but what you end up losing is the opportunity. And for what you're paying for our software, the price of a piece of land, it's $1 million, $10 million, 100, whatever. This is nothing. Mm-hmm. And this is going to absolutely help you find opportunities to make you gobs of cash.
Well, I think it could also help you understand what your property's worth, right? You could, from a broker perspective or an attorney, the families, grandma dies, they inherit the land. What's it worth? The attorney could go on and find a valuation based on this, or the broker could go on, right? Because you have sales data in here too, right?
We have sales data. Yep.
You can be like, oh, look at this piece of property. What did it sell for?
So you can search by sales, you can search by sale date. And then once you have identified a property, Garrett, like from a due diligence perspective, I mean, it's an absolute no-brainer. So let's just say, hypothetically speaking, this was a parcel that you selected, you call the owner maybe, potentially wants to sell, right? So you would basically come into here and you can click on that parcel and vet that parcel out in seconds. So something which would have taken you, days to sort of find out, you can do in now minutes here. I mean, you can find out information as in...
Is owner information on here?
Yes. So the owner information is on here.
Through the property appraiser's website, right? Through all those public...
Correct.
Form.
Yeah. And one thing that we're working on currently is a skip tracing tool. And so what you'll be able to do is actually find the contact information for those specific owners here with one click.
Wow.
So, look, there's
well, one thing I wanted to check out too, you had I don't know which bar on the left was open, but there was interesting tabs on there you could select, like, could you go back to where you were on the left? It was like growth index. It looks like you guys have almost like a proprietary, like getting a facelift. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, those are proprietary layers that we basically, all of this data, we have our own algorithm that helps, in our perspective, is very important to help us understand which sites would be good sites for us to look at.
So getting a facelift, and you can click the information thing on the right, I would assume, and it tells you what data layers are within that.
It doesn't. That's what makes them proprietary for us is what's included. So for example, I'll tell you, we have one that we use internally called Suburban Utopia. And basically it's a combination of all of these wild different factors, like how much green space is in a area, how many water fountains, what's the walkability. And then, that helps us. It's not perfect, but it helps us figure out.
But those blends of data are so important to people. Think about walk score, bike score, transit score, like on LoopNet and these other sites. Those in the last few years are super popular. Everyone takes a look at those analytics. The fact that you have those different options on here, I think is massive, right? Because part of analyzing a deal, there's almost this like intrinsic nature of a site. Like, okay, everything on paper makes sense. The price makes sense, the lot size, et cetera. Oh, it's got the right zoning, whatever. But there's this intrinsic kind of almost artistic way of due diligence where it has to feel right. And that feeling comes from Suburban Utopia or these other interesting metrics that you're not going to find on paper. You're going to have to have these different little points that all add up to good decision making.
Exactly. No, exactly. Yeah.
So like getting so what are some of those interesting proprietary markers you've built in here that you find super effective?
Well, like I said, some of them we use on the back end for ourselves. Like when we're looking at property, we look at Suburban Utopia, that type of thing. But
that specific one's not built into the.
It's not built, and a part of it's not because we don't want to share it, because effectively all of this data is for our customers. We end up doing things by usage. So we look at, we don't know who's using what. Like we're not tracking customers, but we look at how many people click on a particular layer to see if it's worth it. And most of our customers, they know what they want. They know what they're looking for. And so they go after that in particular.
Because there's a business side of it too. You don't want to overload the customer with 500 different layers, right? Yeah. So
and that's one of the things that when we first released this, we had a lot more layers, by the way, and we've actually cut down layers because we really want to sort of pinpoint and target and be of true value to our customers, right? There's some things that we just really didn't need, and it really comes with growing and learning. And
for sure,
we have we launched this in April of this year publicly, right? And I think that we're growing at an awesome rate. And as we grow with more customers, one thing that we hone ourselves on doing really well is taking great client feedback. And so we have a sort of Slack channel that we write all of our client feedback on, right? So we get on calls with clients, understand what their specific needs are, and our software team actually goes in there and makes edits, to our software.
Is there anything you have that would include specific bonuses from different municipalities? Like, ooh, this parcel is near a transit stop and this municipality has a bonus density for a transit stop. Anything like that within the system?
So something that we have is economic and development designation. So we have like a qualified opportunity zone map here. Right. So we have some developer clients who focus on raising funds that are for OpZone deals. So we have an OpZones map. We have a qualified census tract map. We have a lot of affordable housing folks here, right? So small area DDA, non-metro DDAs, all of these are important to them. And to be honest, this is all coming from client feedback. Right. I mean, we have a tool here that we developed just because we have home builder clients now. So you can actually click on this tab here and check this out, Garrett. It's going to track all of the new home communities being sold across the whole state of Florida. And you really have a sort of broad map view as to where they're selling it. And you can simply click on any logo here and it's going to populate information on that specific new build, starting prices, who the builder is, and then everything links to that new home builder page here as well.
And then zooming out, you can get a sense of where that growth is going. Like we were talking about earlier, growth metrics and speculation. If you can say, hey, look at all these new home communities, this would be a perfect site for a commercial parcel or whatever that would be.
That's exactly right. And adding to that point, That's where we came up with pending permits and recently issued permits. And so what we're doing is we're tracking all of the new development and construction projects across the entire state of Florida by asset class now. And so we update this on a bi-weekly basis, and you can now simply click on pending permits or recently issued permits, and you'll see this map that sort of populates, right? And you can sort of correlate that to this legend here. And this will now give you the ability to sort of scroll through this map. You can find out where the multifamily growth is happening, retail growth is happening. This is a great example here. I can click on this. And right today, it just looks like a big old green parcel to you, right? So, but on Realty Dynamics, it's highlighted in orange, and you can see that this was a permit that was applied for in March. We actually linked to that specific permit here, so you can actually look at the site plans for that plan. We distinguish it by asset class. We give you a project summary, so this is going to consist of about 172 single-family homes, and then we give you the information on the developer and the civil engineer handling those permits with the full contact information there as well.
Wow. Now now this doesn't account for like someone building a shed on their property or small stuff, correct? Because then the map would be flooded with so many more permits. So how are you qualifying the permits?
So these are any permits that have any impact to stormwater, basically, right? So if you're building a stormwater pond, or if there's any right, if there's any impact.
So planned developments, like, right?
Larger size projects.
Projects.
Yeah. So this is like retail, and like, I mean, you can track where the Publixes are going. Where, I mean, there's another deal that we saw here just the other day. There's a new coffee user called, I think it's called Cali Coffee, and they're a new sort of coffee shop, and they're basically going through permits right here. So I can click on this, go to pending permits, and I can basically see now here Cali Coffee is going through permits on this site. It gives you the acreage, the project scope, and then the information on who is actually handling that deal here as well.
Wow.
And so, Garrett, you can imagine being a retail broker, right? And using this to actually set meetings up. You can imagine being a home builder and using the software to actually find off-market lots that are going through permits. This is a very valuable tool, and it really hasn't been done.
No, there's been a change up in the value a broker provides over the last few years, and now something that's more important than ever is knowledge. And if you can go to the table as a broker with specific knowledge, like, yeah, see that old PDQ, it's going to be a new coffee shop, right? Little tidbits of information like that are so important from the customer's perspective, because brokers now all use the same software, right? It's like, that sold for X, that sold for Y. That information is easily attainable by your client. Whereas small, unique pieces of information like this, that can be a separator for a broker in earning business.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Like we say it two ways. There's direct value a broker can provide, and there's indirect value a broker can provide. And there's no world where if you're a broker, you want your client to know more than you do about the market, about the opportunity, that specific site. And so we have tons of developers using this software, and that's what we try to tell brokers. Like, you might be able to get away with it today, but at some moment in the future, your developer client's going to be talking to you saying, hey, did you know about this? And the minute that you say, oh, I didn't, where'd you get that? I think you've lost. You have to be able to provide value directly and indirectly to your client.
100%. I'm just waiting for the day where you have some sort of AI integration. Find me a parcel that has, this A+ school zone and that qualification, and here's a list of 3.
Well, that's a great segue, Ishaan. Why don't you show them Land Buddy, and then we'll talk about the couple other features that we're going to have.
Yeah.
So does it already exist on some level?
We are working on it.
Wow.
It's today we can do that for the zoning and the land development codes. And so one of the pain points, which, I mean, you also know because you've also built properties too, is looking at the zoning code is an absolute pain in the ass, right? I mean, it takes hours. You have to hire a land use attorney, or someone's doing that work for you. And so one of the things that we did is we're like, how can we use AI to merge it with the Muni code and the zoning code and get answers to questions in seconds? And so what we did is we rolled out a proprietary system here called Land Buddy. And Land Buddy is your buddy for all questions zoning based like across the whole state of Florida. And so what you can do is now open up Land Buddy and choose your jurisdiction. So we'll go ahead here and choose Hillsborough. And you can literally ask this any question.
Wow.
So as an example, you can say, hey, what's the required yard for this specific zoning in Hillsborough County? Click search. And what this does is actually searches through the Muni code in seconds and gives you specific answers, sections to where it found that code, and then documents as to where it found that actual data from.
Wow. So you're asking it, what is the required yard for RSC 6? And it says front yard setback is this, side yard is this. And then it actually gives you the section of the code where it found the info from.
That's exactly
with
right.
links.
Yep.
So you can be like, let me make sure this is correct. Boom. The info's right there.
Exactly.
Wow.
And you can ask this, you can ask this questions relative to, setbacks, building height limits.
What about specific parcels?
It won't answer questions. It doesn't have access yet to the parcel data, but he'll show you a example of a query that we recently used for our Sims Road parcel.
Wow.
Which one's that?
Well, you can just say how many units. What would the 17-acre parcel?
So it can do the math, so to speak, on stuff like that.
Oh,
yeah.
It's amazing with all of the
So
density
we have a
bonuses that you might
parcel.
be able to achieve,
Wow.
assuming wetlands, assuming traffic. It'll give you impact fee estimates. So estimate what the impact fees for a 240 unit apartment complex would be, and it's able to do that math. If it's in the code, it's available. Some counties don't have the fee schedule, so it just gives you approximates. But what you do end up learning is what you're missing. So if you're thinking about it or you have a pro forma working, you have like 6 or 7 different fee types. It'll enumerate the fees. It's not going to give you the exact number, but it's going to get you close. And you're going to know that you're not missing anything in your pro forma.
Wow. So if you're just looking quickly up a couple sites, 3-4 sites, you can bang out the information and get at least a sense of where you're at versus, God, it'd take you forever to look all this up, as you know.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
check this out.
So you put in, we have a parcel that has a future land use of SMU 6. 10% of the site is wetlands. Can you calculate the total density for this site, taking into account lot setbacks? Boom. And it's giving you this super, super detailed approach and telling you how it's calculating it at the same time. So it's giving you base density, a wetlands deduction, density calculation with additional considerations too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now this is AI, so you have to prompt it, but this can get you the answer to questions very easily. And I mean, you can ask this like there was another question that somebody also had the other day, like what are all of the permitted uses? And so to your point earlier, you can say what are the permitted uses in CG zoning, which is commercial general zoning. And instead of looking it in the code, right, which will just take you 10, 15, 20 minutes, you can just, type that in here.
I always forget my
And check
place
this
in the
out.
code too. You'll think you know where it's at, and then you go to the section, and they're so hard to find. Asking a question is so much easier. No different than calling the building department
Yeah.
or zoning and being like, "Yo, this is the site.
Exactly.
What's the information on it?"
Exactly. And so this is, Garrett, how we're using AI to get answers to questions faster.
Massive. And the learning on this, right? Like this improves over time, right? Doesn't the AI learn what types of questions people ask, or how does that work? Like, do you build in pre-prompted questions, or does
No,
it?
there's no pre-prompted questions. So we're basically we're basically teaching our it's a foundation of ChatGPT. So we're teaching it the land use and the future land use code. But in our scenario, ChatGPT gets smarter, but its relationship to our land use and future land use code doesn't change. So it's not learning what types of questions you want over time, but this is how
But it doesn't need to, because it's just all it needs is the information, and then it
needs
takes whatever
information.
prompt there is and feeds it to you.
That's exactly right, Garrett.
Very,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
interesting.
But,
So cool.
but you brought up a great question. What's the future? So we're basically, the next part of this for Land Buddy is very important. We're going to connect it to all of this data. So eventually you're going to be able to ask it the exact question you want. Hey, I want to see 20-acre parcels in Hillsborough County that are by a traffic light with 30,000 cars per day on a road frontage. And it's going to take this entire back end and give you and give you an answer that you want.
How big do you see this in the future in terms of its use versus where we're at today? There's so much talk about AI and the changes. To me, this is massive. What do you see internally? Like, do you think in the future everyone will just go to Land Buddy, broker questions, legal questions, land use attorneys on this thing all day? Like,
Yeah.
what's your perspective on it?
I personally think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're starting to get land use attorneys to actually use Land Buddy, and it's interesting, right? Because again, we have been on the development side, so we have land use attorneys who work with us, and every single meeting they come in with this big old binder with the comp plan or with like the zoning code, and we're sort of talking through strategy for a specific property, right? And they're sort of like going through each page. And it's a no-brainer to use AI to just get all of that data in seconds, right? I mean, why spend physical time? I mean, what you can accomplish in, an hour sitting down with somebody going through their book or their comp plan can be done here in seconds.
Interesting. And so these land use attorneys, do they see it as a threat or do they see it as a tool? Like, how do they view it? Because it is a new thing, right? I'm sure a lot of these guys that look at it are like, whoa, this is interesting at the least.
What lawyers do well is they interpret the code, right? So it's their reasoning, and so the code is the code. It's just a sort of book of codes,
Right.
And it's Land Buddy helps you locate those codes and those specific, classifications quicker, and it's up to the land use attorney to interpret those codes.
So a lawyer's job is still safe, right, so to speak, because this helps their efficiency, access to information. I mean, a good attorney off the top of their head would know a lot of the stuff, but you can't know it all. And you also don't want to guess. Like, you need that information in the code. You need to read it. That interpretation, I wonder if that's coming.
Well,
that would be very interesting.
Here's what I'll tell you. This is my understanding is from the lawyer side back, they already have that, or there are companies that are aiming to satisfy that need, right? So that are aiming to take all of this case law, like, and it's because it's case law, it's very trainable and readable, and it's for large language models. It's beautiful, and it's able to help them understand case law in a way that they haven't been able to, and extract information in a way. Like when I was going through law school, we used LexisNexis and Westlaw, but
right.
They're all searching in a different way than you would in a natural language perspective. Sort of the same thought process that we have with the brokers, which is if all of your clients are getting their information using Land Buddy, like if you're talking to people and they're like, listen, I've already done some research on Land Buddy for school concurrency, and I know that this is happening and this is happening. At the end of the day, you want to be able to deliver the same value. You can't charge $850 an hour for something that they can get on our software in 5 minutes. And so really, in a very abstract way, my personal opinion is, as long as the decision makers are people, I think that people and lawyers aren't going anywhere, because as Ishaan said, it's all about the interpretation of the law, the execution of the law, and there's so much gray space in how decisions are made. As long as people are making decisions on both sides, I don't think that anybody's job is at risk.
Yeah.
I think the real, thinking X number of years out, the real pain will come when the decisions start getting made by computers, right? Like, let's say you're looking at a site and you don't even need somebody to go out there and search. You're literally taking infinite amounts of data, figuring out, putting it in some algorithm and saying that site, I can pay this much based on the numbers. Nobody has to drive it. Nobody has to see it. There's just so much data, and eventually, then you're going to have computers that talk to each other. But in this particular moment, I don't think people's jobs are in danger at all.
But even when the computers can make decisions, there still is that, I talked about earlier, that kind of intrinsic and artistic expression of development where, look, an AI or a computer model can't drive down the street and understand what makes this street feel good, whether it's the shade of the trees or just the orientation of the road. All those little things add up and matter. Also risk matters too. A computer model might say, you have a 85% chance of this land play being rezoned, like the county approving it or whatever municipality. But it's up to that developer to make that risk averse or risk seeking decision, right? That's we all know stories of those big developers that have huge balls that make big bets. Trump is one of them. He made some awesome bets and some bad ones too, but that takes a person. A computer, I don't think could ever replace that.
Yeah. So I respectfully disagree with that idea. I think all of these decisions that we make that we attribute to like instinct is just we are blessed with the most powerful computer in the known universe, right, between our ears. But it's doing calculations. It's just doing them behind the scenes. And the idea that you see something and it feels good is just the way that we interpret all this data coming into our eyes, the shade, the trees. And if a computer had that and had enough information and data, I don't think there's any doubt 50, 100 years down the road, number one, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between a human and a computer. I mean, that's for sure. And then, if you can't tell the difference between a human and a computer, then they're going to be able to make the same decisions that you and I could.
Well, I think the factor of time matters in this conversation, because I think if we're talking 5 or 10 years out, I think we both have different answers than 100 years out, 200 years out, right? But I also think from a risk-seeking perspective, someone with big balls that puts every dollar they have into a project, like I've done probably, I think 3 times on houses that I've lived in. So kind of the way I started was like a lot of people in real estate. You buy a house, you fix it up yourself, you live in it, and then you sell it for a profit, and you repeat that. At a certain point, if all your eggs are in one basket and you take that risk every few years, there's a chance that you wipe out. What you're saying is, if a computer model could understand how much money's in the bank account, what are the economic risk factors? Is World War III on the horizon, et cetera, et cetera? What you're saying, Shree, is given enough data points that are equal between a human mind and a computer mind, there's no distinction between the two. Given enough data points, if both a computer and a human mind have the exact same data points, the computer's just as efficient, just as creative, et cetera.
It's more efficient.
Yeah.
I mean, a computer is far more efficient than we are at internalizing and extrapolating things from large data sets. That's literally what a large language model is, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not answering you. It's predicting the next words and the next letters or set of letters or tokens that come after what you're saying. So,
yeah.
But it's doing it based on trillions and trillions of bytes of data. So, yeah, I mean, again, I think reasonable people could agree, but that's just my opinion and I think things are going exponentially in this world of AI and large language models.
Yeah.
Look at our friend Elon Musk. He's building these robots. He's got the side of it where we have the implants into our brains, and there's going to be a point in time. You're right. It's probably not 5 years, but it's probably sooner than we think, where there's going to be some, nexus or connection between the human mind and the computer mind, and it'll just make us better.
It's interesting you brought up those law school programs too. I did a semester of law school, and those programs are so important because you're looking. I mean, God, how many cases are there? How many different consensuses on data are there within law? And using those programs was so important. But a software that could win a case based on case law and book law, that's got to be already out there, right? I think those platforms have probably grown to a point where they are like LandBuddy, where you could ask them questions now. I bet you law school right now is using something like that. I'm sure it is.
Totally.
This whole conversation probably is going to dig into every aspect of our economy. It has to.
Totally. Again, but again, where I think it stops is if the decision maker, if judges are always people,
right?
There's always going to be that sort of idiosyncratic human element to decision making, in which case you're never going to get rid of a lawyer, because the lawyer will use these tools and the information given by whatever tool is out there. And then there's a human connection between the mind of the judge and the mind of the lawyer, the mind of the jury, the mind of the lawyer. That's the most important thing. I really feel like the problem comes when people are abdicating the decision making, right, to a computer. At some moment in time, it's just far more efficient. For example, what's happening now is in you have like customer service representatives, right? So the lower level, I think there's like tiers of customer service reps. All right, people are totally moving up the food chain in terms. So your entire tier 1 customer service could be, or tier 3 or whatever the lowest tier is, could be AI. Well, that's a problem, because now you have a AI that's taking the decision making away from a person, and then a person is talking to it. And I think that's where, as that sort of creeps, that's where we have problems.
I think you've already seen this too, with Realty Dynamics, right? Like 30 years ago, there was an intern that would have this is before the internet, obviously, like that would have a book of the code. And then you'd have someone drive around, right? And look at different sites and have a map out. Now, a lot of those individual jobs are accomplished by this program, right? Realty Dynamics. Whereas in the future, that almost like pyramid of people will get smaller and smaller and smaller. So right now, this is a handy tool. What it turns into, I don't think anyone really knows. But right now, this is a tool. So your users right now, they're using it from all these different industries, whether it's real estate broker, investor, developer. Where do you see the heaviest use? Like is it brokers? Is it developers themselves using it? Where are you seeing a lot of users dig in?
Yeah, great question. So we have developers who are looking this to site select specific deals. So it could be a retail deal. And what we do here is, like, if you're a retailer or a retail developer, we also have the ability to actually track FDOT traffic counts. So you can actually track on a map now what those traffic counts are, right? And where that site is actually located. You can use our advanced parcel search tool to actually specifically search for parcels that are near high trafficked areas. And you can also search for traffic signal locations as well, right? So now you can sort of imagine, hey, I'm Starbucks, or I'm a coffee user, or I'm, something like that, right? And I'm trying to essentially find deals that are next to a signalized light, within 1,000 feet of that. And you can really literally use our software to search for parcels there, right? So that's sort of one use case for a retail developer. Another use cases for brokers. I mean, brokers need to have more listings, right? And so, like, how do you prospect? Well, you have to cold call. And how do you cold call? Well, you have to have a prospect list. And so what we do is we can help a broker create a specific list on properties or on land that they can call through or send out mailers for. And then we also have a report tool. So a broker can actually, like, let's just say you're talking to a developer that's based in Kansas, right? And the developer wants to actually get into this market, but doesn't really know much about it. Well, as a broker, your entire job is to add value to that client, right? And how do you do that? Well, one step that we have is you can actually go into our software, click any parcel across the whole state of Florida, right? Go into our report tool, and you can add basically layers that I just showed you on the maps. You can add a flood zone layer, a wetland layer, a zoning layer, a future land use map, a traffic map, a soil map, and you have the ability now to add all of those into a one-pager report and customize that. And that's saved in your view report section here. You can go into your report, click on that report, and then this will generate a custom report, which you can change your broker's logo on, add some notes in, and then print it out as a PDF and send that over to a client.
Boy, that makes it easy for a broker.
By the way, we have some brokers that print 30 of these reports a day and send them out to their clients. Is there anything that they see that they think their client would want? They're putting a report.
Well, it takes a minute. It takes no time at all to put that together. And then and then from here, right, from this report, there's probably a download. You get some sort of PDF, boom, email it over.
That's exactly right. So I can basically go down to here.
It has a map. It has all this information, soil data.
Click share, download PDF.
So when you click share, though, you actually can share it from the website. You don't even have to download the PDF.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
That's huge.
Yeah. So, I mean, it truly is a one-stop shop. And look, we have civil engineers who are using this product too. So they have to create something called a site investigation report, right? And they have a developer who will call them and say, "Hey, Bob, can you help me understand this property better? I just found it. It's listed. Can you help me like vet the site out, right?" And they'll pay $2,000-3,000 for this specific report, which now you can create on our software in seconds
with literally the same information.
with the same information,
With the exact same information.
Yeah, ownership information, and all that data as it pertains, to that specific site.
I know I've been frustrated with some of these appraisers. Appraisers, I think, in some of the other due diligence businesses have gotten a little bit lazy with the easy access to information. And sometimes I feel like they're just using a tool like this. On the residential side, it's a little bit different because I think there's a lot more intrinsic value, like I was talking about, that comes into play. Orientation of the home and where the sun sets and the neighborhood and the just the feeling you get when you drive down a street that makes someone want to live in a home is so much different than where do we put the next Home Depot and what are the numbers and the demographics and all these data, right? For commercial, this makes so much sense. I think from a residential perspective, to get someone to want to buy a house, there's so many little personal details that I don't know you could ever capture fully on a program like this. I think the way you would capture it is feedback from people that live on the street, whether that was integrating through some sort of a website like Nextdoor. You know what Nextdoor is? It's that almost like a group Facebook type thing online where neighbors can be like, there's someone in this neighborhood trying to sell stuff, don't answer the door, whatever, right? But I think from a commercial perspective, this is so amazing because all those data points are so heavily influenced in decision making, like where to put that next Home Depot, right? It's like it's all about the numbers and all about the traffic count and the nearest location to a Lowe's, and like all those facts are part of the decision making. Right. But the laziness aspect of it, right? Like some of these appraisers, when I got my appraisal back on that building at Tampa Heights, it's like, bro, you guys took 2 minutes, I feel like, and just put all these little data points together, and you're charging X money. But that goes back to the conversation with the brokers, right? Providing that extra value. Like brokers now can't just rely on data that their clients can get, right? There's that like extra layer of knowledge or efficiency or separating yourself in some type of way. I think this can be used as an awesome tool, but do you know what I'm saying? Like there is this aspect of just like laziness from some of these different companies that I think they're going to have to figure out, as technology like this becomes more prevalent and more efficient. And even the way it is right now, the amount of data points you have in here could literally make up for hiring a few different companies to evaluate all this for you within minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. I believe though, right, that from a property appraiser perspective, we track sales data too.
Yeah.
And you can actually filter it out by specific square footage, year built, and sales, and you can actually comp similar types of properties. So yeah, I mean, they may be lazy, but this tool will help them get to their answer quicker.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, and just to add to that, and Ishaan, you should also show them the workflow tool, which I think is an important part of this too, as we evolve into what Realty Dynamics should be. But the one thing I will say, and I agree with you 100%, Garrett, is water finds its own level. And so at the end of the day, you're right. Right now, there's a delta between the technology and then the service provided.
Yeah.
So there's more margin in it for the service provider. But what I do think is going to happen as time goes on is there's going to be an entirely new set of companies that are going to grow whose overhead is nothing, right? So let's say you started 30 years ago, and let's call you an engineering company. You have a front desk person, you've got secretaries, you've got all of this and that, and you got all these people you got to pay for, right? That's your overhead. So you got to charge a certain amount and for information delivery. If you started today, my goodness, the new entrepreneurs that we're talking to on a daily basis, they don't have that perspective at all. In fact, there's a movement in trying to start the next unicorn having one person, like that's a movement, right? Taking all of these wild tools, all in sort of keeping their overhead so low, but giving the same amount of efficiency and effectiveness, you're going to be able to do so much more with less. I do think effectively, eventually, water will find its own level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the discrepancy between what you had to charge because that overhead 5, 10, even plus years ago versus today, right? That's why you have the lawsuit with the National Association of Realtors. There's just a huge discrepancy between what consumers feel like they're getting versus the service we brokers provide. And that's just a pinch point in our industry that's expressed itself through that challenge. Like 3% on $1 million home, $30,000 is a lot of money to pay someone when the average commission was kind of around the same 5-10 years ago. Now that we have all this new technology, should that number decrease? Probably. I mean, I hate to say that as a broker, but the reality is as information becomes more readily available, people just aren't going to need as many realtors, right? As many brokers, commercial and residential. If the data is available to the client and I can hop on Realty Dynamics and bang out quick due diligence, and as the developer, like I don't even need to hire anyone. I can be on there nerding out at 11 o'clock at night. You don't have to wait for the broker to get the information within a few days of searching data like you did 10 years ago. There is a discrepancy between payments, and that's just not brokers, right? Like you said, Shree, that's all. Every piece of a real estate deal is going to have to kind of level its way and find its way out. But all that to say, it's challenging as a broker in the industry, but I think the efficiency, access to information, consumer knowledge, developer knowledge, everyone's knowledge increasing is a good thing. How it shakes out in the meantime remains to be seen. But I don't think it's a negative thing. I think brokers and developers and everyone just needs to tighten up and figure out a way they can provide value and use tools, right? Like, don't close yourself off and not use a tool. Like, let's all use tools. No different than consumers use Zillow. Like, if you're looking for a home, you don't need me to tell you, oh, it's a 4-bedroom, 3,500 square feet. The last sale was this, the last sale was that. Informed decisions. What's the best restaurant around here? Questions that really can't be answered through analytics are more important than ever. And the good people in the industry will know that and track that data. And the lazy people in the industry will not get calls back and kind of float away. And it'll just be a more lean industry as a whole. Not just brokers, but everyone.
Totally.
Yeah. So where are we at, Ish? Because I want you to dig through some more of those different
the actual layers,
data points,
and the features. Yeah, sure.
Just interesting things. I've just see flashes like as you're scrolling of all these crazy data points. There's so many.
Yeah, there's a lot. One of the things that we're super happy about and we're excited for is our workflow tool. So if you're a developer or a broker, right, you're going to basically go into a parcel here and how do you have a pipeline tracker? Like how are you tracking your 20 or 30 deals or 50 deals across the whole state of Florida, right? How do you track that? Well, some people use an Excel spreadsheet. Some people have some other type of like workflow tool. Well, what we did is we actually implemented our own workflow tool into Realty Dynamics. So now what we're able to do is click on a parcel, and then it'll essentially say like add to workflow. So I can zoom into a parcel here, click that, and then click add to workflow. And then what that will do now is in our workflow tool, you'll be able to manage all of your projects. So I can click on 10502 Sims Road, right, as an example. And what you're going to see here is basically the whole workflow for that project. So these are going to be all of the parcels which I've added to this workflow, right? Because this project consists of 3 different parcels, and I can customize this. So I can put like under contract, pending, prospecting. So whichever type of service provider you are, whether you're a broker, developer, so on and so forth, you now have the ability to use this workflow tool to actually manage your pipeline and use that to track specific properties here as well.
Very interesting.
Yeah, across your team as well. So everyone that's in your organization, you can, let's say you're the administrator on a project, you assign tasks to people. They get the acknowledgement that the task is assigned to them, and as they continue down the path, you get updates as to whether they're finished. You can set timelines. It's a true robust workflow tool.
Within Realty Dynamics, right?
What-
It's not a separate site.
Nope.
It's actually integrated with all these data points, et cetera.
That's exactly right. Yep. And so it's as easy as going into the software, creating, adding to workflow, and then you can basically add as many properties as you want to your pipeline tracker.
See, one thing, like what I was saying, like all these little points of data, like I even see, it looks like you have the utility easements on here of some sort. Is this like an electrical connection going across the river, right?
This is a power line.
Right, power line. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Like, you don't really necessarily have that on Google Maps.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. It's definitely hard to see that.
But there's all those little things that, like, where are you getting that data from? Is that because zooming from a satellite view, you can only see a cleared
yeah, it's hard to see it.
road of land, but on the map portion of it, you have like the line and it says Tampa Electric Company, which is, I'm sure, the owner of that land.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So where do you pull that data from?
It's a good question. So the parcel data is pulled from the property appraiser, and then this map. I'm not too sure, to be honest.
It's our data guys question.
That's
Yeah.
awesome, though. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that that's in there is huge.
Yeah.
So how does it work if someone wants to join? What is the pricing schedule? Is it a annual commitment? What's all that?
Yeah. So our pricing is on our main homepage. It's realtydynamics.ai, and it's priced at $199 per user per month. And then we offer like bulk rate discounts as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a part of a association like a home builders or CCIM, so on and so forth, we do offer specific discounted rates. It's a 1-year contract.
Got it. And you said you dialed down the number of layers you can put on it, but I'm
Right.
sure jumping into it might be challenging. So is there a sort of like training program you offer when you join?
Yeah. So all in progress. Probably in the next week or so, you're going to see another tab here that says like Learning Center, and then it's going to be a link to like YouTube with all of our clips there. So it'll be like 1 to like
cool.
3-minute clips on like how to use like all of the layers. Yeah. So
And
that should be done soon.
it looks like if someone wanted to try it out too, you have a demo tab.
So the scheduled demo is to schedule a demo with me directly to actually walk somebody through the actual software. And that's about like a half an hour demo. Anyone can do it. It's very easy. Just click on schedule demo. This will link you to Calendly, and then you can select a day and then basically, book a time with me.
Beautiful.
Garrett, one of the best pieces of advice ever given to me and why Realty Dynamics is helpful, in addition to all the value that we've talked about today, is they said, if you can avoid doing one bad deal, it's okay to miss 9 good deals. And I think that's a big part of what we're trying to provide is like you may miss great deals, right? For whatever reason, for all the reasons that you talked about before. But if we can help you avoid getting into a bad deal or spending $75,000 trying to figure out, and we've talked to umpteen developers who've said, hey, we spent money on an environmental scientist and it turns out there was an eagle's nest. Well, we have eagles nesting. That's a tab of ours. Or, hey, we didn't realize what the floodplain elevation is on this site, or we didn't realize what the soils were. And, you're into a site for 15, 20, 25, 30,000 bucks. That is meaningful dollars. So that's that's what we're hoping that your listeners can take from this too, is that when using this software, it's going to help them save money and avoid bad deals.
when my my grandfather, after he was mayor the first time, this is like I think it was 70s and 80s, he worked for DeBartolo for 20 years. And his job was the in-between between the development corporation and local government. So as DeBartolo was going around Florida and the Southeast building all those shopping malls in the 70s, he would have to talk with the local municipalities about how it was going to get done, the land, et cetera. And again, this was a long time ago, and I probably can't use the exact quote my grandfather told me, but they showed up up north. I think it was like Hernando County, Crystal River kind of area up north of Tampa. And he was talking to one of the local guys about this particular site. And, you know, back then in Central Florida, and even still today, it's pretty country. And some of these old boys were talking about these burrowing owls and red-headed woodpeckers. And this guy told my grandfather, he goes, "Let me tell you something. What you need to do is you need to get a 20-gauge shotgun, and you need to kill every red-headed woodpecker out in them woods. You're going to have them federal boys come down and take you out, and this project will never go through." So it's like, back then, right? Information, that was information. Like, that was a key piece of information that would have stopped a huge project, probably like a major mall project, right? In the 1970s when all those were built. Thinking about that story, and today with the software you have that can identify an eagle's nest, like you had to hire someone, a former mayor, to broker information, right, between a developer, a local municipality, talking about all those different little tiny nuances. And now you can literally click hazards, eagle nesting areas on this app. I just think that's so fascinating, how in a matter of a few decades, information can change like that.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
No doubt. No doubt.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And look,
You don't have to use your shotgun anymore. You
No,
can
you
just
don't.
use Realty Dynamics.
Exactly.
Cool, man.
You know, some things like that we take from clients is like conservation easements. I mean, we really like actually request clients to send us their feedback, because it's the only way. Like, look, if you need it, there's a lot of other people that also need it. In fact, that's why we built the software, because there's a lot of folks across the whole state of Florida that can get a lot of value from the software. So we're super proud about this, Garrett, and you know, hopefully this continues to grow across the whole state of Florida, man.
Yeah, I think it will. And I also think as you move forward, you already have, you know, close to 100 users, and you've been building this out. You've been dedicated to building this out for how long now? You guys have been working on this over a year, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As you move forward, you'll probably have users, and I know you already said you did, reach out to you like, "Yo, I found this within the system. Like, this is an interesting data point." And then you've implemented that, or you've taken things out that make it more simple. Like, this will probably never be a solid state. It's always fluid. It's always data driven, new information, taking out some information, keeping it lean, right? It's like this ever evolving, dynamic software.
Yeah. Our goal is to continue to innovate this, and the folks that don't get left behind. And we're super passionate about this project and the software, and we're going to continue to make this better and better.
I think it's a game changer. I really do. So how can people get in touch? Mention it one more time.
Yeah, so you can go to realtydynamics.ai. You can schedule a demo with me directly. You can sign up online directly. I would highly recommend to schedule a demo, because it's really the sort of best way to spend 20 to 30 minutes like with me to sort of understand for your service type, right? Whether you're a developer or broker or a civil engineer, as to how to best use the actual software.
Got it. And is that the best way for people to get in touch with you if they have questions, is through the demo?
Demo, yep.
So that's on the front page of the website.
It's on the front
Schedule
page.
demo.
You can press schedule demo or schedule a call right here.
Fantastic.
And it'll link to my Calendly.
Beautiful. All right, guys. This was fun. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Garrett.
Shree, I know you've got a call at 1, right?
I do.
All right. We'll let you guys run. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks, man. Appreciate
All
it.
right.
you.
Cheers.
Thanks, dude.
Later, boys.
Garrett,
Shree, you the man.
thank
All
you so
right.
much.
Thank you, guys. All right. Bye, everyone. See you next week. Hey guys, if you want to watch episodes just like this one, make sure to click right here to view the rest of our full episodes, and also make sure to subscribe by clicking right here. Thank you for watching.